Welcome to the Berks Homes podcast, the business of building homes. I'm Katie. I'm here with my brother Ben, and today we are talking about how to make business simple. That's a loaded statement, isn't it?
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
About simplicity in business?
Yes.
Being relieved to not have to do complicated things?
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot more brain power.
Yes, that is the first thing that comes to mind is maybe I wouldn't be so tired if things were simple.
Mentally. So we just talked about this, reducing friction in your daily, workflow, right? So in our business, we have people who do, the same things on repeat. Mm-hmm. Some people, right? The vast majority of people in certain departments and jobs, they do primarily the same activities over and over. Mm-hmm. It might not be every day they do the same thing they did the day before, but there's a cycle of it, right?
There's so many examples. Look at accounting.
Yeah.
Monthly routine, daily routine.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Our builders, our superintendents, they're doing their cycle on the building cycle. So, but if you can reduce the amount of decisions that you need to make on a daily basis, so it's just like automatic, then that's the goal, right? Yeah. And I think that it's a natural progression. I would start way back in like the chuck in a truck example. Yeah. Right? So coming from my previous life of remodeling, it's very typical to start out on your own with your tools, your tool bag on, and you're just, doing the manual work. And then you go home and at night you do invoicing and everything. Right. But you naturally have to be simple because there's nobody else to help you. So you have to accomplish all the things necessary in a simple way, right? Then you hire some people. It gets a little more complicated. Yeah. Because now you have to deal with all the personnel. Yeah, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But then you also are looking for ways to be more efficient. Mm-hmm. Now it's not just you. You have other people to keep busy. And so you're like, oh, okay, so I have two people, and let's just say they punch the clock, right? Mm-hmm. And now you're thinking, okay, what's the most efficient way to keep time? I used to write down my time. This is the theoretical person. I used to write down my time every day in a notebook, and so I could keep track of my hours to charge to my customers. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to ask people to write down time because I'm going to get this guy that ripped off, a napkin, and then this guy is going to email it to me because he's techie. Mm-hmm. And then they're like,
inevitably going to forget every other week. And
okay, so we need a process. Mm-hmm. I'm going to think up the best way. Nobody's ever done this before. And what happens is it gets complicated. Mm-hmm. And you go through these various stages of business as you grow, introducing more and more complication. The goal is never to be more complicated. It's just you're trying to be efficient, but at the end of the day, you make it inefficient.
Right. It's not that the goal is to make it more complicated, but by default, it will happen if you actively don't make it complicated. Right. You have to be like fighting against the complication at all times when you're introducing a new layer, a new level, a new person, a new anything. Yeah. If you aren't thinking through what complications it's going to create, you've already created some.
Right. And then the next evolution is you hire a consultant. Consultants go throughout the country looking at best practices, ways to do things. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking, well, the smart idea is to say, I want to take an analysis of 100 companies, and if 80 of them are doing something the same way, why wouldn't I just do that? That's efficient, right? So that's your next step. Then the next one after that is saying, we've been doing this a long time. I know 80% of the companies do it this way, but I'm smarter than them. We can make this better, right? And then you have, in today's world, a tremendous amount of noise in each industry. It's not just ours. Somebody's got a solution. It's an all-in-one, out-of-the-box, $29.99 a month. Right. We're going to take care of everything.
Every problem that you have.
And then you're like, this is it. This is it. You're really trying to solve like two problems, but it's saying, I'm going to solve 5.
So I mean, if you can solve 5, let's go.
I didn't even know I had 3 other problems. So then you get the software, and then you get into it, and you're like, I guess it solved like 1 out of the 5. I don't really like the other solution for the second one.
So I'm going to need another one.
Yeah. Or I'm going to develop my own software.
Yeah.
Right? So you go through this cycle. Anyway.
Ooh, yeah.
The point is, you have to do an audit at some level of everything and get people in the room, and you can never eliminate the human problem-solving component of stuff.
Yeah.
You need input on, and it's usually the person that's just like fighting it to fight it that actually has the most truth, where they're like, why don't we just do this? How about we just do this?
If you have someone in the room saying that to you, you should really listen.
Listen, yeah. Because some of us are very practical. Like I'm generally one of the more practical people in the room, you know, because I don't like when things get away from me.
Yeah, well, we talked about this a little while ago. If you hear something, and you go, sounds terrible.
Right. There's a reason.
It's complicated, or that's not it. That's not the solve.
Right. Let's go back to our business. We always talk about it's 2 things. It's not that complicated.
It's not that complicated.
Just in its truest form. You show up to an empty lot, piece of land. You call the excavator. He comes, he digs the hole off of the plans that you made, right?
Yeah.
So just like step by step, not super complicated, but you put it all together, and it can be the most incredibly complex transaction that any business takes on because of what? The variables. And this is where the complication comes in.
Exactly.
You try to solve, you make an all-in-one solution for every scenario that could happen. And therein lies the biggest issue I would say most businesses have. You're trying to solve the problem for every scenario that could happen. And sometimes you just have to say, that's a game time decision every time.
Are you thinking of something when you're saying that? In particular?
I'm saying processes, right?
Like
so
what?
We receive our raw good land in many different conditions.
Yes.
So I always think of our business as a manufacturing type industry. But Mike Pavey says this, our VP of construction, all the time. Yeah, we're a manufacturing plant that has to work outside in the elements.
Yeah.
With different topography.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just by saying that, it's very different.
What is interesting about that concept, and I've talked about this before too, is you are basically taking whatever is there and then bringing it up to what a manufacturing plant would start as.
Right.
It could be nothing there and you're getting the plant in place, or it could be a finished lot, which we know is never finished.
Right.
That you only have to maybe, move the curb cut or something like that. But you're bringing it up to a certain point. So just that in of itself,
right,
to your point, is you can't have a one-stop shop solve for every piece of land that you purchase.
Correct. And so what happens is somebody says, I know what we need. We need a checklist, right? For anything.
Yeah.
Any predictable continuous cycle of process, you're going to have like some sort of checklist. There's certain list of things that need to be done no matter what.
Right. And then somebody reads the checklist manifesto and things get nuts.
Yes. And then they go, well, okay, bullet point 7, you can't just have a blank beside that, that thing. There's 12 different ways this thing can be done. We can receive the land in 12 different conditions, right? Yeah. And so the variables overrule what you're trying to get done. And you're like, yeah, that has happened. That did happen twice last year. But it also happened, 532 times
the other way. Yeah.
So let's not get hung up on the 2.
So are you suggesting that we don't need a checklist? Or are you suggesting that you make the checklist simple.
Yes.
And train on problem solving in real time.
Bingo, bingo. You always need a checklist.
Yeah.
You got to have a workflow.
Right.
You know, you got to have handoffs in a workflow. When I'm done, somebody else picks up the ball and runs with it.
Yeah.
That's what happens in 99% of the businesses out there. There is a cycle. And I'm talking about businesses that are not selling something on a shelf necessarily, you know, buying it and selling it. But most businesses, well, maybe even in a retail store, there's some sort of checklist that they go through on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah.
You know, they check their inventory, all that. So all I'm advocating for, and this is why we wanted to have this discussion, is don't get tripped up over the exceptions.
Oh, that's exactly right.
You know, just focus on the end result and manage through those exceptions with good leadership, clear direction on what matters.
And communication.
How you problem solve is a direct reflection of your leadership. So if you have, you know, some core tenets of, you know, what matters most to your business, you're going to solve problems the right way.
Yeah.
If it's well communicated, you know, what matters most, right? So I would like to think in our business that when it comes down to a Sophie's Choice decision of both options are bad, we're good. And one of them is money's always involved in our business, right?
Yes,
like it's
I know
like
where you're going. Yeah.
Losing money or whatever. I would like to think that everybody in the business knows that the customer experience, delivering the product that they paid for, and in a quality, you know, keeping quality at
manner and time frame. Yes.
At the top of the list, those things will not be sacrificed.
First.
Right?
Yep.
So you're saying, oh boy, this is a tough decision. It's going to cost us money because we made a mistake way back here. So I have the option to deliver the home on time, but it's not what Berks Home stands for in terms of the quality or something. Or
it's missing half the cabinet doors.
Yeah, something like that. Ultimately, we're going to make the customer hurt financially or something like that.
Right,
you know,
right.
That would be, those things would be the guiding principles for the decision making.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have a really strong idea of what the end goal is and what matters the most, you're always going to problem solve that way.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes, I assume in many businesses, you deal with situations that you can't solve that problem on this one. Cat's out of the bag, right?
Yeah.
I'll use an example of going back to the land situation. We buy land from many entities, developers, whatever. So they're not all the same.
Yeah.
This developer's really good at this. This developer's really good at that. This one's terrible at this. This one's terrible at that. And we value the relationships first and foremost. So, you know, sometimes we take it on the chin financially when we receive a lot where we ask them to do X, Y, and Z, and they only did X and Y. And we have a choice to make, right? Sometimes you just have to suck it up, and the only thing that you can solve for is the next one.
Yeah.
And that is where the magic happens, is saying, don't get frustrated because you lost out on this one or it didn't work.
Yeah.
You can't solve, there's nothing you can do except stroke a check for a mistake.
Yeah.
Right? But solve it for the next one, you know?
And what you're kind of addressing here is some people might think, well, if we had a checklist that would have made me know that this was going to happen, or if we had to have all this stuff done first and then move forward, a lot of those things would be great if it worked in practicality, but you can't know everything and have everything vetted, and you can't live life like that or do business like that, because sometimes you do just have to move forward. You have to trust that someone's going to do what they say they're going to do and have that relationship. But what you're saying is we can't let that sunk cost or that mistake, quote unquote, mistake, drive the complexity or simplicity of the business.
Right.
It's a sacrifice that we're willing and pushing people to make is for the sake of ease, simplicity, lack of friction, not filling paperwork out just to do it. It's okay if we miss and just get it right the next time.
Absolutely. And I would encourage everybody. I know a lot of us in the organization are using various tools to build our L10s.
Yeah.
Like Asana or something, keeping track of things that we want to address at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Even if it's in your notebook, those are the things that you need to put down right away and say, we need to solve this.
Yeah. Or
right?
at least bring awareness to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because maybe it wasn't something that you could have caught, but maybe it does impact somebody, further up in the process or something that it's easy for them to add.
Right.
A complication 5 steps down the road, you can't do anything about, but maybe you bring it up to somebody who started it. It's not always every person who is affected by a mishap.
Yeah.
It's not their problem to solve sometimes.
Yeah.
That's some of the keeping it simple as well.
Right.
And this is something that I talk about, I'm sick of even saying it out loud, is push the pain back on who it belongs to.
Yeah.
Don't ever accept the pain of something that should have been addressed ahead of you.
Right.
So if you're making checklists and systems and processes because someone else is doing something wrong, you have to stop immediately. It goes back where it belongs.
Especially, it's funny, and sometimes we have these wonderful guiding principles. We have 4 of them that work, we've talked ad nauseum, together harmoniously, right? And sometimes we omit 1 or 2 where I've seen people creating a system to fix somebody else's problem.
Yeah, we talked about that with the helpful episode a little bit. Yes.
And they've never even said anything to that person. I'm going to make the biggest point here, okay? This whole idea of being simple. I've been really churning on this lately. It is the most cliche thing, but communication in its rawest form, which is verbal, just true verbal communication on the phone has got to increase if you want to reduce the complications in business. At the end of the day, you can always call somebody and notify them.
Yeah.
When we look at the way, this is just, again, not just our industry, every industry, what we've done with so many different tools and processes and apps and websites and everything is, in reality, you're just getting a little further away from personal communication.
From being human.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I still think that it's so important to emphasize how much you should be communicating with others on a daily basis.
That's it. You can't emphasize this enough.
Yeah.
Just one assumption derails way more than you can even imagine.
Right.
So if you're working with someone and it's email back and forth or in a workflow.
Yeah.
Because we've got all of these technologies you're talking about. If it's in Asana or Sage or anything like our accounting system, it's just flowing through the automated process. And going back to you saying earlier that you're looking at what the checklist and trying to come up with what to do next. And I wanted to bring this up before. If it's not there, and this is the same thing with an automated process, if something's not on a checklist but flowing through an automated process, you have to touch it with human eyes and ears and communication.
Yeah, nothing's autopilot.
Right. So it might be in this automated process, but you might look at it and go, I know that's wrong. Just because it's in there, you should really question it and say, if you know that something's off, that's where you pick up the phone. Yeah. And you say, hey, did you mean to code this way? Or did you is so quick. Yeah. It solves it. Yeah. Immediately. Instead of, again, going back and forth and pushing and,
Yeah, we strive to automate so many things in this world, and that creates opportunities, so many opportunities on a daily basis for that assumption.
Yeah.
And what does Dad say about assuming?
Yeah, can't say it here.
Why not? Once you assume something, you've already made the mistake. And I think so. Over the last few weeks, we've been doing a lot of strategy, pivoting on certain things, rethinking. This is why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
We want to make it simple and easy and clear so people know what they're accountable for and can just run.
Yeah.
And I've had to communicate a lot more, and it's a lot easier to go in with a plan. So good communication requires planning ahead, right? So if you think you're just going to go get a lot done by talking to people, you're really going to have a bad day because you're just going to, so it's being very clear about and intentional about the communication.
Yeah. Do you need to convey the message or do you need to receive it?
Right.
You have to understand what the purpose of the communication is.
Right.
First.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Doesn't mean you don't want to connect with people.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if you wander around aimlessly, I got to talk to this person and I'll walk down the hall and I'll talk to this person because I have like tangential conversation about something. You're really going to lose time. And I think that's what people are afraid of.
Oh, yeah.
But if you, it's just etiquette, if you're calling somebody and you're respecting their time by being brief, they'll respect yours. And so it's just methodically moving through your situation with purpose, but ultimately saying the best way to get the actual answer is by calling somebody.
Yeah.
That is really the purest form of communication.
Yeah.
Calling them, walking into their office, whatever it is. That's how you get the direct path.
Yeah.
And then you get your action to make the decision from there.
Right.
And I think that's lost.
Quick side note for us introverts. And here we keep saying pick up the phone and call. In the year of our Lord 2024,
yeah, I know.
Feel free to send a quick message via Teams or a text saying, hey, do you have a minute for me to give you a call?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I usually do. I try not to call people, at least in the organization, where I might have access to like Teams where I can see if they're busy or something like that.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is, and maybe I'm making this up, but etiquette now with video calls, because that's what we use. We use Teams to call people. It's not, we're so old saying pick up the phone and call. We're not doing that. We don't.
I mean, I do, but I'm different. I'll have my computer right in front of me and I'll call somebody in our organization who I know is sitting at their desk.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is to send that message first because, you want to give them the opportunity to be properly set up in their space.
Right. Yeah. They might be at home. Yeah.
Right.
No, totally legit.
So with the simplicity of process and communication when maybe the process is not working or something like that, the other piece to that is not only is the action of people needing to be simplified in business, what they do, but also the tools they use. And you touched on this a few times here with the products that we have, software and things like that. An exercise that we're going through right now is doing a software audit and saying, okay, why do we have a subscription to this? Who's using it for what? Do we have another tool that does, like you were saying, solve 4 out of the 5 problems, and then we can just pick one of them instead of having 2? How does that impact people's workload? Is it going to remove a step if we take away one of the things where you've got to put in this software, you got to fill out this field, and then you go and open this one and you do this in here? If you do a really good audit on what the whole organization is using and what that whole workflow looks like, you can eliminate a lot of the complication too. And sometimes you have to make the decision to temporarily say, okay, you're going to have to put the same thing in 2 places until we move out of this and into that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you make that choice and 2 years goes by and you didn't put it in the replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever solve that for someone? Are they still doing it in 2 places and they could have stopped? So it's just
Right.
It's just a habit or just a routine, like you're saying, in a cycle that people should go through is just auditing the tools that they're using.
And you can use that as in that cycle we talked about of, when you start out and you're one guy and then you get a bunch of employees, and it's a necessary thing at every step. And it's not just to say, oh, we just want to save money by cutting a subscription. It's like actually not spending the money on that might unlock something, some sort of efficiency where you're like, oh, okay, so we don't trust our people to solve this one thing.
Exactly. Yes.
And I think that my whole point in saying that phone call, that personal communication is so important is I think things are being designed on a daily basis to eliminate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
totally.
And, our business, there's maybe more than most, there's many things that you can't take out of that.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't eliminate the personal stuff.
Especially in our business.
Yeah. The best thing to happen from a production standpoint to our industry was the cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You could also argue that it was one of the worst things because now you're relying on the ability to not plan as well. Right? So the first time I ever built a house, like myself, was a long time ago, and I wrote the schedule down on a piece of paper, a calendar.
Yeah.
I literally wrote it. Okay, the framer's showing up on this day, blah, blah, blah. And then I emailed it out, but I was like, this is just kind of like a rough, loose timeline.
Yeah.
I'm waiting on a couple things to fall into place, and I'll call everybody. And then what happened was I think the excavator was set to show up, and it was going to rain. It was going to pour all day. So that paper schedule was screwed up already, right?
Day one.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, I'm going to keep my own schedule, but I'm just going to call everybody every time anything moves, and then I'm just going to call them to confirm. This was before email was like a huge part of life. And I still do that.
Right.
And it's like, you can text. That's totally, that's the best way. But if you have a question, you can call them. Because you can't assume that somebody's sitting by their computer to answer an email either.
Exactly.
So that's just my only point is that's the simplest way to get the best answer the fastest is always to talk to somebody. Yeah. And you're going to solve problems better by talking to them instead of emailing back and forth. Yep. Because you need context. So if we're talking about going back to basics, simple, talk more.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
reality, talk more because you're going to solve the problem in a more efficient way.
This is good. So we said, don't let your system rule the decisions.
There's always decisions to be made.
Leave flexibility for creative problem solving and trust that the people know how to make the call. Talk to each other. Yeah. And we can get rid of a lot of annoying stuff if we do those 2 things.
Right. I think in any business, there should be some sort of cadence to review results, not just in a financial way, because I think that's a road that most businesses want to go down right away is like, to spend a lot of time reviewing the financial results of something, a period. For us, maybe it's a house. Yeah. But review it in a way that you're trying to solve problems for the future. Yeah. That's
you can
where
have a really profitable house that went terribly wrong.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
All you had to do was make a good buy on the land.
Yeah. I mean, that will hide everything then.
Hid all the bad stuff. Yeah. And so I think that there should always be time and space given to review things. Like you said, audits of processes, subscriptions, whatever it is, and saying, what's the worst thing that happened if we didn't have this? Yeah. That's kind of the question you're asking, right?
Of course. Absolutely, yes. Well, and we keep bringing this up, but what's the stop, start, continue thought process?
Mm-hmm.
What should we stop? What should we start maybe instead? Or what are we just missing? And what's good?
And the question to ask is always, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Usually nothing too terrible.
No, you'll tell yourself a story that you need X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah. If you ever hear anyone say, we have to do that,
right,
then you ask a lot of questions. Because you don't have to do anything.
Right. Because generally for most businesses, there was always a time when you didn't have it.
Exactly.
And there are those rare tools, softwares, whatever, that truly do give you a big advantage once you get into it and you're like, wow, that was a game changer.
Yeah.
But it is rare.
Yeah, exactly.
It's rare.
Mm-hmm.
We're all still in the people business.
Yep.
And so we need to obviously over communicate about things and help each other solve problems and work together. So I can't believe I lost my train of thought on the challenge. I had a good challenge with this. Oh, I know what it was. Okay. It's around problem solving / simplifying. And it's this idea of thinking like an owner, right? So I think that one of the things that sets our organization apart from other companies, and it's tough to always, say something like that because it sounds like you're being braggadocious, but I really truly think that we have a lot of people in the organization that think like an owner, like they protect our brand. They protect their coworkers. They protect our financials.
Yeah.
They care as if it was theirs. And that's what makes a great organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking, when you said audit, I was thinking of if you do like an internal, like a personal audit of what you do on a daily basis and what is your mindset on how you deal with those things. Do you think like an employee? Or do you think like an owner?
Interesting.
And so it's getting to the next level above the issue and saying, what are all the factors? What are the ramifications of this? And how would I do this if I owned the business? You're generally going to get the right answer. You're going to get the right answer.
Yeah.
But if you do it just because it's part of your job or because somebody told you to do it that way, that wasn't an owner maybe, that's not always the right way to think, if you...
So that's your distinction in thinking employee versus, if you owned it.
Yeah, you're going to come up with the right, generally, that doesn't mean you don't need input from people.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, would you put your name on that when you're faced with a decision to maybe compromise a value or something, if I speed up a little bit, what am I going to compromise?
Yeah.
How would you do that differently if you owned the business?
Right.
And I say that just because I think that we have a great group of people who have always thought like that. And what they've done is they've seen over the years how, our family businesses run.
Yeah.
And they distilled those simple concepts of what matters. Like I said, the people, the product, the experience, those things that matter the most, and then that's how they make decisions.
Yeah. Can't go wrong.
When I say think like an owner, you want to think like, well, the Berks Homes brand, right? That's the owner.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not us. It's been here for 50 years.
Right.
And operated the same way. So aligning yourself with the guiding principles, and that's thinking like an owner.
So that's the challenge.
It's a challenge. Yeah, think about what you do on a daily basis, and would you make decisions differently with that lens?
So you just say, if I was in charge.
If I was in charge.
Yes.
Yeah, and then if
it's
a crappy decision at the end of the day, then Katie will yell at you.
I'm so mean.
Yeah.
That leaves us with the shout out this week, and today, I'd like to talk about someone who just got back from a long trip last week, and she was really missed, and she hit the ground running the second she came back, and just the work is flawless. So I want to shout out Stacy File today. She just is so consistent and just really is doing a fantastic job with understanding our intention. So she is in the legal compliance department, and it's really difficult sometimes for legal to not get a bad rap when it comes to, like, you know, they always tell you no or things like that. She does a fantastic job of truly understanding what you're trying to accomplish and how to, with the, you know, least amount of risk, make it happen. Right. You know, and even what's interesting working with her on things is she'll tell you, this is how to be sure that this is the least risky thing you can possibly do. But I understand that it's not real life.
Right, yeah.
So I'm going to give you 2 more options. Yeah. This is the one I recommend, and this is why. Do with that what you will. Right. And then whatever it is, make it happen. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Stacy is the director of compliance, and so she leads a team of people that is their job is to protect the company from risk. You know, we're in real estate, so there's a lot of risk out there all the time. What she's done, and she was new to the industry. Yeah. I mean, you know, relatively new to the industry when she came on. She's done such a wonderful job of understanding the business and saying that's what drives her work instead of the work driving the business.
Exactly.
Saying, okay, I got to understand what the end goal is. Always understanding the end goal. And it's awesome because I don't know, how long has she been here? 3 or 4 years? Yeah. So every year.
No, it's longer than that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stacy.
Yeah. You seem like you've been here for
forever.
20. So
yes.
That's a good thing. So understanding what it would look like to reduce that friction. You know, I don't want to complicate your world, but we do need to protect ourselves in this way.
You still need to do it in a legal fashion.
Yes. Yes. We want you to stay out of jail. Yeah. No, just kidding. Yeah. Great shout out. I really enjoy working with Stacy. Excellent note taker. You know.
I know. Well, those are the people that
I always love people that take good notes.
I know.
You know,
it's just, can I have a room of them whenever I go anywhere?
So if we can take 1 second, we're gonna let's make a starting 5 using basketball. Yes. Top 5 note takers in the business. All right, and this, you know, I don't want to upset anybody, but maybe you need to up your game to get on the starting 5.
That's true. These are the ones that we're aware of. If you'd like to put your name, you know, in here and profess that you're the best note taker, please, by all means, reach out. But we know number 1, Maddie.
Maddie, absolutely.
Maddie in accounting.
Maddie in accounting, number 1. Stacy's up there.
Yeah, Stacy.
Okay, Caitlin,
obviously.
Also in compliance.
Deb. Also in compliance.
The chief compliance officer. All right, there's somebody else. I mean, those... Yeah.
Okay. Dale's been doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, we got to mix somebody else in. I'm going to go with Dale.
Yeah.
Good notes. Recap.
Oh, no. We missed 2 already. Now we've got starting 10.
Honorable mentions.
TRG.
Oh, TRG. Yeah.
And Brandon
Emick.
Yes.
Also.
And Steve Smock. Okay, I got to stop. Everybody's
we could go
better.
10. Steve Smock, really good.
He's a really great note taker.
I'm also going to go with John Wisner.
Yes.
Director of drafting. Notice how there's nobody from sales, marketing, experience, or construction. Okay, John D.
You know, he is on the list.
Yeah, but I'm saying like top 4 or 5, like are on another level. Maddie, you win. Yeah.
I'd like the rankings. Please send in your submissions.
Yeah, so, you know, there's a lot of people that we're not exposed to.
Yeah.
Andrew Lewis,
freaking great.
General Manager in State College. Yeah. Okay. But there's people that we're not exposed to that we would appreciate you letting us know. So let's just call that 10-ish people. If you know somebody else, then we will
add them to the roster.
We will shout them out. Okay. And that is, if I had one thing, if there was a list that I want to be on personally, like I'll never get on the list. Okay. I'm not going to get on the list. I do a lot of notes. If there's a list that I would want to be on, it would be the note-taking list.
I know. I can do it for one meeting every once in a while I'll just come out with like great notes, but that's just an annual event of note taking.
Yeah. So we appreciate those of you that help us out on that.
Yeah, thank you. And that wraps it up for this week.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Love it.
All right. See ya.